everybody. Welcome into the second episode of Half Street High Heat. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Amanda White. You can follow me on Twitter at awhite7877. And I'm joined by my co-hosts, Nick and Ryan. Can you guys give your handles?
Yeah, you can give us a follow at DC Nat Shack. Great follow, great for the brand, and good times.
And while you're at it, go follow Half Street High Heat on Twitter. We got the Twitter up and running. Pretty active. Some polls confirming that Ryan and I are right in what we say. So, go give us a follow.
Got it. And while you're there, you can follow at DMV_SN, both on Twitter and Instagram. That's the DMV Sports Network for whom we are doing this podcast. If you visit the site, there's going to be daily content, articles, and podcasts, and all things DC sports, also college sports. So once you're done listening here, go check it out. Also, if you don't mind, we'd love for you to subscribe to our show, give us a review, follow us. We really appreciate any feedback and interaction with our listeners. So let's get into it. First thing we want to talk about is Bryce Harper still hasn't signed a contract. So let's give a quick little rundown of his potential locations. What are you guys feeling? There's been a lot of rumors the last 48 hours.
Yeah, I mean, the rumors, you don't really know what to believe. Anyone can pretty much say anything at this point, and it would be as valid as like any of us saying anything, just because no one really knows. I mean, we've never really had an off season like this, and I mean, we've never had a Bryce and Machado on like hit free agency at this age, and also like this far into the off season without being unsigned. It's just unheard of. So anything anyone says could be just as right as anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone walks back every report they have anyways. Yeah. Heyman tweeted something, and then an hour later it was walking.
Yeah, I think it was less than an hour.
Yeah,
it's
like absurd.
And then
Heyman's a joke, but
I do have to say, though, all signs seem to be pointing Philly's way, and we have no idea how valid any of that is because nobody's giving sources or actually discussing why they think the things they think.
Yeah.
But I've had a sinking feeling the last few days that I'm just waiting for the announcement of Harper to Philly. But I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's just if that happens, or if Philly really is the favorite, I just don't see how the Nats don't make a competitive offer to prevent that.
Yeah.
I don't know how they let that happen.
I guess it depends.
Especially if the report.
Sorry, go ahead.
The report that's 10/10. Like, if that's true, I don't feel the Nats don't match that. I mean, what's an extra $1 million a year for what they already offer?
Right, but that's the thing is I don't think that original offer's on the table anymore. I mean, the original offer of $300 for 10 years. I mean, what if after Corbin and all the other signings they've made that's not their offer anymore? $310 might be considerably more than what they've got on the table now.
I struggled to believe. So, I mean, we kind of talked about that 10 or the 300 over 10. It was kind of just like, we're throwing it out there. If you accept it, great. If not, then we're not going to lose sleep over it, because it had no opt-outs. I mean, there was just zero chance he was ever going to take that deal, and it was more Rizzo offering that deal to like appease fans, saying like, why didn't you offer? Like, that was just
right.
Just to cover his own butt. That, I mean, he at least did something. But yeah, to Ryan's point, why would you not just give $1 million more if that's like the counter offer? $1 million more per year? Yeah, why would you do that?
I can't
That's
imagine
a no-brainer.
It's going to be that close. If it's close, I think the Nats will come in. But the question then becomes is, where does Bryce want to go? Does he want to stay here for the same money, or does he want to go to Philly?
I mean, if it's here or Philly, it's here. No doubt about it. It's just, I mean, Philly will have to outbid, and they have the spending power to do that. It's just, what's the dollar amount that like breaks that tie?
Yeah, I don't know. And I hope that whatever it is, the learners come correct and bring him back. But the other one people have been talking about is San Francisco. What do you guys think of that?
I don't really think that is a possibility. That's kind of just like the only reason why he would go there is if he wanted to be close to Vegas. I mean, their team's old. They don't really have a farm system, and the rebuild's kind of just starting. So Bryce going there would just be like a move to the fans to be like, hey, look, we just got Bryce Harper. Start coming to games again. Yeah. I just don't really think that would make any sense whatsoever. But if he goes there, I mean, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, it would bother me less than him going to
Yeah.
Philly, but I don't think it makes any sense for him. I mean, for one thing, he's from Vegas where it's hot all the time and it's, rainy and cold a lot in San Francisco. I don't know that he'd like it. He's not going to have as good numbers there as he'd have in Washington or Philly.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And it sounds like they were offering a shorter term. So why would he go to a place he probably won't like as much and have worse numbers for less time? I don't know. Even with a higher AAV, I don't know that makes any sense.
Right. And I mean, plus they just signed Cameron Maybin, which is like the perfect Bryce Harper replacement. So, I mean, I don't know why they would even still be interested, to be honest.
Right, exactly.
It's
like the Dodgers and Pollock. I mean, they've already got their Bryce Harper. What do they need him for?
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you guys. It would be just a move so he could be closer to like his real home where he grew up, which, yeah, it would bother me less. Obviously, we would miss him here, but I mean, for all the factors involved, the shorter deal, regardless of the AAV, I just don't see it as a legitimate threat. I think they were kind of just like testing the waters and seeing if he would take a shorter deal because that's all they would be comfortable giving, considering they're about to go through a huge rebuild. But it doesn't seem like he has any desire to sign just a 2 or 3 year deal. So I don't see them stealing him away.
Yeah, they don't seem like a real contender. And that just leaves Washington. What do you guys think is the chances of him coming here, and how will you feel if we get him back?
Ecstatic. I don't see how we would be anything less than World Series favorites. I know that's haunted us before, but I mean, I would argue on paper and talent-wise, we're the best team.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if he comes back, this is the best team they've ever had. And it's really not that close either. And like just everything would be great. The lineup would be able to protect the bullpen, the pitching would be there. And like with the depth they have, this will probably be like, oh, hey, this is finally the year. Or maybe they'll finally win the playoff series in 5 years. So I was pretty hyped if he came back.
Yeah,
I'll be excited too. Although, again, with the caveat everybody has, which is they've got to get a deal done with Rendon. You can't let what happens with Harper or doesn't happen with Harper can't affect Rendon. I think he's the biggest thing they need to be focused on going into this season as far as getting him signed to an extension.
I mean, yeah, but that's almost you let future Rizzo and future learners worry about that. Right now, it's if we can get Bryce back, we get Bryce back.
Yeah.
I
mean,
what
do you guys feel about if he doesn't resign? How do you feel about World Series chances in the immediate future and just the team's direction in general?
I touched on this on Twitter a little bit. I think if he goes to Philly, Nats are positioned in the 3rd or 4th best team in the division. I think with that lineup Philly would have, and they would probably add a pitcher after that, Philly and Atlanta would be the best teams in the division. And then if the Mets rotation's healthy, I mean, last time the rotation was healthy, they went to the World Series. So that their team will go as far as rotation goes. So I don't know. My outlook would be pretty grim if Bryce goes to Philly.
Yeah, it's just going to be a all-out dogfight in the NL East, especially if he goes to Philly. If he goes to San Fran, I mean, we're probably Philly's probably still below us. But I mean, they can still steal some games from anyone above them. They still have the potential to do that with that staff and some of the bats in their lineup. So they're not to be taken lightly like the Marlins. And like Ryan said, the last time the Mets were healthy with their pitching staff, I mean, they went to the World Series.
It's true, but that's a pretty big if. That staff
right. I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with the Nats. If their rotation stayed healthy, then who knows what could happen. Yeah. So it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a long season, a lot of back and forth. I can't wait for the Braves, Mets, and Phillies fans to just always have something to say on Twitter, just because their team's like 3 games back or whatever, 3 games up.
Right.
So, I mean, it's going to come down to like the last week of September if Bryce doesn't resign.
The deadline's going to be extreme.
And you think if Bryce resigns that's that different, that the Nats run away with the NL East, or they're at least on top?
I don't know if it's a runaway, but it definitely makes them the favorite. I mean, if you think about it, we would have the same team as last year, except we would improve pitching staff. Improved bullpen from like the opening day on, and then, Phil second base, and then we get a full year Soto.
And catchers.
And catchers. I mean, we're better all around
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just a more consistent team. So I don't think it's a runaway because I still think the Braves, Mets, and Phillies will have competitive teams. But I mean, there's no way we can't be the favorite if he resigns.
I hear you. I'm not quite as low on the Nats' chances if Bryce doesn't come back. I think it's really going to come down to what we get out of Soto and Robles this year, because if there's no Bryce, we're going to see a lot of Robles. And,
right.
It remains to be seen. We just don't have a big enough sample size to know what Robles is going to be at the big league level.
Yeah.
But and we have less outfield depth too. I mean, we know what we have in Michael A. Taylor. We talked about that last week.
Not much.
So yeah, and of course, everything always depends on injuries. But I definitely hope we get Bryce back. I think the team is undoubtedly better with him than without him. But I'm not quite so low on their chances. I think they've made a lot of other improvements this year. I'm a little worried about the bullpen. I like where the rotation is going into the season. So I think there's a lot of good things happening for the Nats. I'm real excited about seeing Gomes and Suzuki both get to play less than they would normally if they were just a starter, and I think that's going to be a real benefit to the team. So
yeah, I think I'm just down because, one, I don't want to get my hopes up just because we have had one of the best off seasons that we've ever had, but also I think it's hard to expect Soto to do what he did last year. I think it's hard to expect him to stay healthy. And then, I mean, I have no problem with the rotation being our biggest strength, but it's just such a dangerous game to play as we've seen. Yeah. So there's just so much that could go wrong. But if you have Bryce, there's that overall security blanket. So.
Well, I guess hopefully by this time next week when we record, we'll know where the hell he is.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't imagine last week that we wouldn't know by now, and I can't imagine now that we won't know by then, but we'll see.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on. Talk about some roster battles. If Bryce comes back, we've got Robles, who, as we talked about last week, is still young and, maybe he could use a little more time down in AAA. Mm-hmm. But then the other option is Taylor. So given that battle, where do you guys fall on that? Would you rather have Robles up as the fourth outfielder or send him down and keep Taylor?
So, I mean, this is assuming Bryce resigns.
Right.
Because I think if Bryce doesn't resign, you can keep probably both of them. And then you can just platoon them, if anything, because you'll want Robles' upside. But if Bryce does resign, I mean, I would personally go Robles because I think a spark off the bench is nice to have. But right now they're pretty similar in what they give you. Good glove, speed off the bench, and whatnot. It just depends on how much or how ready you think Robles is.
Yeah, agreed.
I think regardless what happens with Bryce, Robles is going to be the starter. They've held on to this guy for a long time, especially with some very good people they could have traded him for. I think that he's going to be as ready as he will ever be. I think they're going to put him out there and have him either be starting or the fourth outfielder, and just try to figure out what they got in their future, make sure they made the right decision holding on to him. I don't really see how any way that Michael A. Taylor would make the roster or start over him. We already know we're going to get to him. The dude can't hit. And he's just all he has is a glove. So I think they're going to want to see what they have in Robles and put him out there as much as they can.
So you think he starts opening day?
If Bryce resigns, I fully expect that he can get traded. And then if he doesn't sign, I fully expect Robles to be starting center field.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that they're going to. I don't think they're going to start Taylor in the outfield on opening day. I think they're going to roll with Robles if there's no Bryce.
Yeah,
if there is a Bryce, I think they trade him. I think they'll.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not arguing. I would love that to happen. It's just I'm going off past decisions, and I think they make the wrong one and start Matt. But that's not what I would do. I think that's what ends up happening, unfortunately.
He was the starting center fielder last year. Everyone forgets that. The dude had his chances, and he was so bad. He lost his job to a 19-year-old who never played above AA.
Oh, you don't have to tell me twice.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
I think that they realize that, and I think because of that, Robles is going to be the guy that they're going to go with.
Yeah, and I'm surprised, frankly, that Taylor got the same chances he got last year. Last year, he got the same ones he had the year before that. Last year, Dusty was here. I remember a media report early in the season with Dusty telling him, this you need to make the most of your opportunities because you're not going to get a lot more of them. And he got a whole nother year's worth before Soto came up and took the job. So
Yeah, people just remember those like 2 or 3. I mean, granted, they're pretty cool moments, but they remember those 2 or 3 moments that Matt had, like the home run in the playoffs or like some sort of web gem in center field, and they think like he's this amazing player, and then they come out with the argument, oh well, if he got consistent at bats, like Ryan said, he was the starter last year. He did get consistent at
He had
bats, and he was awful.
353 at bats yet last year, and he
like
227. You know,
exactly. I mean, the dude has had plenty of chances. What you see is what you get with him. So, I mean, there's nothing hidden in him anymore. You would rather see what Robles can provide you.
Yeah, so that'll be an interesting one to watch to see if Bryce doesn't re-sign, what the Nats do with Robles and Taylor. So that's an interesting roster battle, and we'll see what they do in spring training too. If Taylor has a really great spring training, that probably changes this a little bit. Where if Robles,
which is of course is probably what's going to happen because of course. And
if Robles has a great spring training, it's going to be really hard for them to send to keep him on the bench if he's hitting. So let's talk bullpen battles. What do you guys see as bullpen battles coming up?
Honestly, the bullpen I don't think is that good. We can Sharpie in Doolittle, Rosenthal, Grace, Glover, and Barraclough. And then for the final 2 spots, it's going to be Solis, Suero, Miller, Ross, and Vito Nuno. However you say his name, I apologize for that. None of those guys are that good.
No.
Like everyone's either coming off a terrible season or major injury concerns. I mean, Barraclough's second half was atrocious. He had like a 14 ERA and like a 2 WHIP. You'll know how Rosenthal is going to be. Glover can't stay healthy to save his life.
No, he's had a lot of injuries for such a young guy.
And then if Matt Grace is your best lefty, that's an issue.
Yeah, and I've had enough of Solis. Oh
my God.
Yeah, dude, it's not good.
They don't have a lot of lefty options, though. I mean, Doolittle, obviously, but he's, like you said, he's in Sharpie. But
yeah, I mean, and Solis is going to make the roster just because he's out of options, which I think is going to be a massive mistake. Like, he can't get lefties out. Like, that's the equivalent to a kicker who can't make a field goal. He's useless.
Yeah, what do you need a lefty reliever who can't get out lefties?
Yeah, like, the dude, he's terrible. And people are going to talk about, oh, he was overused. He only threw like 39 innings last year, and that wasn't even the most he's ever thrown. And so, I mean, he just wasn't good. Like, the guy, like, he's had numerous chances. He's been here for 4 years. He's only had 1 decent season in his career, so I want nothing to do with him. I'd much rather them try to bring in a lefty, but I know he's going to be the 6th guy. It's just going to be interesting to see if they go Ross out of long man or if they try to strike gold again with Miller.
Yeah. Ross is going to be the long guy if I had to make a prediction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think with his innings limit after the surgery, although he's pretty far past that Tommy John now.
I think Ross would be really good in the bullpen. I mean, he only has 2 pitches, and people like that, they're going to be good for 1 or 2 innings. Just have him go in the bullpen, throw as hard as he can, and like with the stuff he has when he's healthy, I think that could really translate over. And I think that's something that could be done very well. I just hope the Nats do it. And I just think it'd be such a big mistake if the Nats send him down to AAA with Fedde.
Yeah, I didn't hear if you mentioned him, but I think Wander Suero has a good chance to make the roster too. I mean, he was pretty good last year. I think with the bullpen, you kind of just have to go upside because you don't really have many safe bets.
Right.
So it just, and plus, I mean, the options, you already saw Trevor got shipped out of town because he was out of options. So, I mean, if Solis is on the program come the end of spring training, it's a pretty safe bet he's going to make the roster.
Yeah, I mean, and Suero has 2 options left. So
yeah,
I think they're going to use another one of those.
Probably. Unfortunately, I don't think it's the right move, but they just have so many flyers. They don't have safe bets that if that's the options you have for those final 2 spots, I go upside at that point. So I would go Ross with the long man and then Suero because he's shown some stuff in his time last year.
Do you think they might go out and get anybody else? Especially, what if Bryce doesn't sign, if he goes somewhere else and they've, so they're sitting on this money that they might have been willing to spend on Bryce. Maybe they go out and get themselves a good reliever.
I mean, that's a question to pose. If they don't get Bryce, do they just pony up for Craig Kimbrell? And then
that's the one I had in mind.
And then Doolittle is more flexible to be that lefty specialist if you need him in the 6th, 7th, or 8th. Which, I mean, he's done before, and he's a team guy, so he's not going to throw a fit over not being the closer.
Yeah,
even
I
though
think
he's
he
more
will,
than
yeah.
capable.
And then you've got it, and then you've got him and Rosenthal. Can you imagine Rosenthal, Kimbrel, and Doolittle as options to close? I mean, just depending on the situation and who's been overused, you've got really good.
Yeah, and then I mean, perfect world. Your any of your starters get you 6, 7, maybe even 8 innings a game. So, I mean, at that point, if you have Rosenthal, Doolittle, and Kimbrel, I mean, you don't really need to worry about the anyone else.
I haven't really heard what Kimbrel's looking for as far as AAV, and I wonder what kind of deal he's looking for.
He was originally looking for like close to $100 million in 6 years because he wanted to beat Chapman in Jansen's deal. But just the way the market has gone, that's not happening. I think he probably wants to be around $20 million, which for a guy like Kimbrel, throw him like 3 years, $60 million. That's not a bad contract at all.
And if they don't sign Bryce, I think that it would make sense to go out and do something else. That bullpen is weak. I'm not feeling
right. Yeah, why not just shore up? Yeah, I mean, statistically, he's at this point in his career. If you compare him to Mariano Rivera, he's a better closer than Mariano Rivera. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you could do a lot worse than spending that money.
He's got a 1.91 career ERA. I mean, the guy's.
Yeah, I mean, and people are saying last year was a down year for him. He had 42 saves and the WHIP below 1, and his ERA was 2.7. And people said that was a down year for him. Yeah, that's an elite year for most relievers.
That might be a down year for him, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a damn good year for a reliever.
Yeah. I mean, Sammy Solis would like give up his entire salary just to have a year like that. So.
Yeah, it would take more than that because that'll never happen.
Yeah, so I would love them to just be like, okay, like so long, Bryce, but I mean, we still have work to do. Reallocate that money. Just go get Kimbrel.
I mean, you would have a closer who's finished top 10 the Cy Young Award 5 times in his career.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. So going on to another potential roster battle here. How about Kieboom versus Defoe?
Yeah, I threw this one in there just because I was trying to think of potential battles we might see. I mean, I don't know how. If Bryce resigns, I don't think there's the need to see Kieboom. You just let him develop, and plus you have Dozier, you have Kendrick to fill in at second, which is kind of where Kieboom projects to end up once he makes it to the big leagues. Mm-hmm. But if he has one of those amazing spring trainings, why not just give him a spot over Defoe?
Yeah, I'm over Defoe. I don't feel like much like Michael A. Taylor. I think we've seen what Defoe is and what he has.
I mean, I hate Defoe. I think Defoe is absolutely terrible. Like I won't shy away from that. But I think Defoe is going to be up there for the majority of the year. Maybe July, August, we might see something else. I just think for the sake of his service time clock, they're going to try to keep him down as long as they can.
Just probably
so get an extra arbitration year.
Yeah, which I hate the way that all works, which would be a good segue into our next segment. That works great. So there's been, of course, a lot of talk about labor issues. And I know for a lot of fans, this is kind of, pardon the pun, inside baseball stuff. But, there is a lot going on right now with how slow the last several off seasons have been for free agent signings and, the way that people are deciding whether to go to arbitration or sign extensions that give up their arbitration eligible years and that whole thing. So do you guys have any particular thoughts on that situation going forward?
Well, I know Ryan has a Ryan rant to prepare or to share with everyone. So I'll go first on this one. It really just comes down to the owners versus players, and that's why, like last week, Ryan said we're on the midnight train to a lockout, just because there's so much wrong with the current CBA, and it's not one of those things where everything just magically gets fixed on the first time around. It's going to take some strong opposition from the players to show the owners that they're serious and they want what they want. They want what they deserve. Yeah. I mean, there's just so many problems from free agency to the game rules to whatever it may be that have to be addressed. And the only way the players can do that is if they strike. I mean, I hate it, but I understand it. I mean, it's what the players are going to have to do. The owners are cheap. They don't want to pay up. They're billionaire owners, and I can't stand the people who sympathize with the owners. They think the luxury tax is some evil thing that is really going to hurt our team. No, the owners have the money. It's just it's a de facto salary cap. It doesn't mean anything. Teams go over the luxury tax every single year. It doesn't hurt you at all. And I mean, I think the worst penalty is that your like draft pick gets moved back 10 spots. I mean, how often do you see draft picks pan out in the MLB anyways? And if they do, it takes 3 to 5 years anyways. So you don't see the benefits of that draft pick right away anyways. So you might as well go and spend on a surefire player like a Bryce, like a Kimbrel, whoever it may be, while you can. So I don't understand why people are actually on the owner's side. And
well, I don't know that it's as simple from my perspective as just owners versus players, although for the sake of playing devil's advocate here, I would say if you look at what, baseball's a business. People say it all the time about free agency. Like,
right.
Yeah, they love their city. They love the fans here, but baseball's a business. So we all know baseball's a business. Look at a team like the A's who won 97 games last year. They had 18 guys playing at the league minimum, and they won 97 games.
See,
so you're looking at from the perspective of a businessman who owns the team. Why are you going to go out and spend a whole lot more money than you need to spend to get similar results? And I understand the players' perspective, which is they're making more money than ever and they should be spending it on players. But as long as there's no salary cap, it's very hard to say you have to spend a minimum amount if there's also no maximum amount. And I would hate to see a salary cap in baseball. But
right.
I feel like maybe the answer, and we talked about this a little last week, is to have some sort of a minimum, not a dollar figure minimum, but some sort of a minimum amount of the revenues that come into the teams have to be spent on player salaries.
Right.
And then let the teams decide how to break that up. But I don't think it's so simple as bad guy billionaire owners versus, woe is me, the players aren't getting what they deserve. That there's some of that, but it's a lot more complicated than
that. It is. But I do think it's the bad guy owners before, like against the players. I think the players are really getting shortchanged here, both in their contracts and like what they are and aren't allowed to do just based on the CBA. So that's why I think there's going to be a lockout. And just one more thing. I mean, I think the A's are an outlier. How often do you really see a season like that?
Sure, but
and plus, I mean, if they had,
are outliers too, and everybody always tries to copy them.
I know, but
if the owner sees that you can do it, then they're going to try to do it.
If the A's had that big splash in the offseason, maybe they would have actually gone farther than the wild card game. Like, it was a great season. It was a great story, but right? It was nothing. And no one's really expecting them to do that again. They're an outlier that they're not the example.
You're letting the union off the hook here a little bit, though. I mean, this is the deal that the players signed. The owners have obviously worked it to their advantage, but this is the deal. I mean, they're within the rules of the current CBA. So certainly I don't like the current CBA. I think there are a lot of things that need to be changed, but I don't think it's so simple as that. I mean, they are working within the CBA, and this is what the players and the union signed up for.
Well, it's just one reason why there's going to be a lockout come 2020.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there probably will be, unless there's some significant give from the owners who are definitely having the upper hand.
Yeah,
right now.
Which there won't be.
I just think it's not so simple as the owners versus players.
See, I think it is that simple. And you like kind of touch on the A's. The reason why the A's won so many games is because 6 of the top 8 draft picks for this year were American League teams, because American League was terrible and they just beat up on them the entire year because all those teams were awful. And like, to me, the most annoying people in the world are people who sympathize with the owners.
Yep.
MLB owners literally went to Congress and lobbied for them to pass this act that made minor league baseball players seasonal employees.
Yeah, that's the worst thing, is the minor league stuff. I'd rather see them address that. I'd like to see them address everything, but if they had to pick, I'd rather see them address the minor league salary.
Yeah, I think it will. It's not like a national storyline like the free agency problems.
And so now we're kind of seeing that in the major leagues. Owners realize that they cannot spend money and people are still going to come out. And so all of them have these weird analytical things that determine the player's worth. Like, Mark Reynolds literally said that he had nobody call him, and then on one day he had 4 teams offer him the same contract and all said the same thing, which is kind of pretty suspicious to me. But it's just Bryce and Manny are now in the position where they can expose all the issues, which the reason why this is getting so much attention is because they know the longer they go, the more attention it's going to get, the more the players are going to get upset, and that they can afford to do this because they're going to get signed eventually. The smaller guys, like last year, because everyone's like, oh, they're just waiting for Bryce and Manny, while Boris cried collusion, everyone laughed. And all these guys had to take terrible offers. But when you're 26 years old and you're the face of baseball, you can do this because you know, A, someone's going to sign you, B, the more attention it's going to get. Like, we're seeing football podcasts, football writers commenting on it, and this is a huge threat to the sport. And like, Manfred keeps talking about all these issues, but the owners are what's killing the sport. And it's a terrible thing that if you're not going to have these guys pay up to get signed just because they realize that, oh, hey, we're going to use a luxury cap as an excuse because we realize if we don't spend money, people are still going to come out. And the CBA is terrible, but I just
that's the thing. This attention that's being paid is going to make it a lot easier for the players to negotiate a better CBA the next time around.
Yep.
Right.
And I'd love to see that. I just like I said, I'm very much a free market person. I let the market work itself out. If it goes to a lockout, I'd hate to lose out on a baseball season. But if that's what it's going to take to recalibrate things the way they need to be, then I'm fine with that. But you know, I just feel like both sides are looking out for their own interests. And I don't hate either side for doing what's best for their side.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys saw what Yasmani Grandal said, but there's the reports early in the offseason that he turned down the 4-year, $60 million deal from the Mets, and then he ultimately ended up signing a 1-year, like, basically qualifying offer with the Brewers. And basically, when he was asked about it, he didn't really confirm that there ever was that 4 for 60 offer. But what he said was that, I mean, he needed to keep the line moving for the guys behind him who were looking for deals. If he takes a shorter deal with a lower AAV, that just ruins it for guys behind him. So you both touched on it with Bryce and Machado. They're the ones that can afford to do this because they know they're going to get paid and they know they're going to play this year.
And they're doing a big favor to the players as a whole, I think, by bringing so much attention to this issue.
Right.
But you know, this has been going on for years. I think back to the year that Ian Desmond went to free agency and he turned down the qualifying offer from the Nats, which was, I don't remember, 16 million or something like that, which seemed incredibly low for a guy with his resume. And then he wound up having to sign a $5 million deal with I think it was the Rangers after camp had started. So like, this has been going on now for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I get the point. I think Desmond's not the best example to use because you look at him now and he literally doesn't have a position in the field because he's just so bad everywhere. And I think teams
but
were.
At the time, that wasn't the case.
No,
right,
it was.
I mean,
no, I think it was, but no, I get your point because I mean he signed into camp like a 1-year deal with the Rangers and then had a really good All-Star campaign as a center fielder of all things, and then ended up signing again. And yeah, that was just people thought, oh, it was Desmond. It's not like a Harper or Machado now, and they didn't really pay any attention to it. But now we're really seeing what started back then, and probably even before that.
But you know, there's a good comp. I think I work in real estate in my real life job, and I'll tell you one of the things I have to tell people all the time is what somebody else paid for something or what they got, you know, what they bought it for or sold it for is irrelevant to what the market is now. And I think part of this is the CBA, but part of it is just the owners have decided that they're not going to pay these outrageously long-term high AAV contracts anymore. And the market just isn't what it was. And just because somebody 5 years ago got paid some amount, that doesn't mean that you're entitled to get paid that amount now. Now, I think they're entitled to more than what they're getting, but I don't know that we're ever going to see these huge 13, 15-year deals, you know, where the teams are taking on this kind of risk of the back ends of those deals being, you know, terrible years for the player. So I just think the market is changing, and some of it is the CBA and some of it is just the market. And I think it's not going to maybe go back to what it was before.
Yes, but I don't think it's that simple. I think that's part of it. But I mean, you see guys who are still have plenty of value, and they're signing like minor league deals, and they're getting money that's like chump change compared to what they deserve and what they've earned.
But how much of this is skewed because of Machado and Harper not having signed it? I feel like if they had signed deals in December, that the rest of the market might have shaken out differently this year. I feel like them being out there unsigned, and you know, names like Keuchel and Kimbrel and these big names being unsigned is filtering down to the smaller names.
I mean, Keuchel hasn't had a market all offseason. Kimbrel's market fared out in late November. So would it have though? Because even if they signed, we would have the same problem we had last year with all these guys going late as they can, just because they're not getting the offers they want. And owners are just trying to wait them out so they get desperate and sign dirt.
I'd love the new CBA to include a deadline date for free agency. Just say free agents have to be signed by X date, and that's it. And after that, you can't sign guys. And then that puts pressure on the teams to say, we need to figure out who we want and sign them.
But
I think that hurts the players.
Yeah.
I think the owners will still just push up right up to the deadline, and it's the players are the ones without the jobs. The players are the ones without the money. So I think that ends up hurting the players more because the owners are just going to push them right to the deadline, and the players are still going to end up taking a deal that's less than what they deserve.
If anything,
maybe so, but they might at least get a deal. Right now, we're going into spring training, and
I
there's
think
100 some odd guys that don't have a deal at all.
I think a lot of them will end up getting deals, but it's not how it should happen.
They're not
so I
going
don't
to get
think
anywhere near their worth, especially when the league's bringing in $11 billion in revenue and the owners are pocketing everything.
I just feel like if there's guys in camp right now and they start camp and there's guys who are fringe guys, the big name guys are going to get deals, of course. But for the fringe players, the ones who may or may not have gotten a deal, I think that going into spring training without one makes it a lot more likely you're not going to get one because they've already got other people in camp and they're just going to be like, why bother?
Yeah, I mean, just we've said it all show. I mean, there's going to be a lockout just because there's so much going on. And I mean, another thing is the arbitration. I mean, we're seeing guys sign for less than what they would get in arbitration just because they want that security because they know they're not going to get paid.
Yeah, because the market.
So let's talk a little bit about Nola and Severino, who both did that this week. Mm-hmm. What is your take on those two deals?
Severino's was very interesting because he came out and said that he wanted his deal to be front loaded because he knows there's going to be a lockout and he wants to get paid before that. But the Yankees didn't budge and they had it backloaded. So I think that's just both of them were just players reading the market, seeing how saturated it is, and going, I'm going to get a couple more years of security and hope after the new CBA things change so then they can cash out. And that's going to be a trend that we're going to see because we keep talking about strikes and lockouts. And all the younger guys are seeing that, and they're scared because their salary isn't made up until late into the season, anyways, like February and stuff, and they don't know what they're going to get. So if those guys are arbitration during lockout, they're not getting paid. So a lot of these guys are going to do that, taking very, very team-friendly deals just so that they can protect themselves in case of a lockout.
Yeah, and that's true to some extent. Although I think with Severino, I mean, I think he only gave up 1 year. He bought out he signed over his arbitration eligible years, but it only went 1 year into his free agency eligible year. So basically, he's got the security of, I think it's a 4-year deal that he signed, and it might be a little less than what he would have made in those arbitration years if he performed well and made the maximum he could have in arbitration. But you never know what might happen if you might get injured, and he's really only delaying his free agency by 1 year. So for me, that deal just is kind of a no-brainer for him. Why wouldn't you take that?
See, I see both sides. I'm literally right smack dab in the middle when it comes to this argument because I think for Nola and Severino, it was a bad idea to do it. Like I get, like Sean Doolittle was very outspoken on this because someone kind of called him out for talking about this because Sean Doolittle signed a deal that kind of got rid of his arbitration too.
He's underpaid because of it. Yeah.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And that's why it's such a team friendly deal. But he had a good point that he did it for the security, and Doolittle wasn't as touted of a Nola and Severino. Like he never had a season like they have. So Doolittle literally needed it for security because at the time he was a fringe player. So for those fringe players, yeah, it makes sense to buy out your arbitration years because, I mean, as we saw in Doolittle's case, he got hurt the next year and then he got hurt the next year after that. So he needed the security. Nola and Severino don't. They're going to get paid. Even if they get hurt, someone's going to take a chance on them because of their young.
Their own risk has their own, how much risk they feel comfortable taking on. If what they want is security and what they want is to say, I'm okay if I make $15 million less on this deal than I would have if I had gone to arbitration the next 3 years, but I get a 4-year deal and I'm only delaying my free agency by 1 or 2 years. I don't know that that's a bad deal for the players. And, you are taking a risk. What if you don't perform? What if you do get hurt and you're not you're still in an arbitration eligible year? You may not get paid more.
I mean, I get that. Like everyone is entitled to a contract in a situation that they're comfortable with. But I mean, you look at Tanner Roark, he's in the last year of his arbitration eligible, 10-year, and he still got $10 million this year, and he had a terrible year last year. So you look at Nola and Severino, they're getting $10 million for the next 4, maybe 5 years if their teams pick up their options. So I mean, if they had just gone through arbitration, they would have gotten paid a lot more money.
If they were healthy and if they performed as they have in the past.
I mean, but Roark had a terrible year last year and he still got $10 million. And
Yeah,
so,
and
I
every
mean,
player situation is different. But I just look
right.
at, you see players like look what happened to Matt Harvey. Like, you see players for whom not taking an extension does not work out
I
well.
mean, Matt
I
Harvey
think
still got $20 million this offseason.
right. I can't believe anybody paid him that. But my point is, he did have years where, he could have made more if he could have taken an extension when he was, when he was considered one of the top up and coming pitchers, and probably made a lot more than having just gone to arbitration. Do you know what I mean? So you can see for different players, the situation can play out really differently. So for some guys, who was it? Somebody was saying this week they only were going to take 1-year deals. They were never going to do anything other
Trevor
than
Bauer.
And for some guys, they have that kind of risk tolerance and they're able to bet on themselves and they want to do it. And for some guys, they want the security of signing an extension, even if it means they're going to make less money. $40 million might just be enough for one guy. Say, if I could have made 55, but I only made 40, I'm okay with that because I know I've got a job for the next 4 years.
Right. And I mean, one reason I am in the middle of the argument is just because if you look at it from the other perspective, granted, it's sympathizing with the owners. I mean, when people need to understand arbitration, it can go to court. Like, it can literally be a legal battle. So, I mean, everything is going to come out and everything's going to get put on the table. And we saw a couple of years ago, Marcus Stroman with the Blue Jays. I mean, they said some pretty, I mean, we don't know what they said, but he was outspoken and said
he was pretty pissed about it.
Yeah, he was mad about what the Blue Jays said about him and what their real opinions was. What
they're
of him were
minimize the player's value, and that's what
exactly
sucks about arbitration is if you want to have a good relationship going forward with the opportunity to sign a player to a deal, going to arbitration is a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dangerous game to play on both sides. So I think buying out your arbitration years is better for the middle of the pack player, but for people like Nola and Severino, I still think it's a bad idea because, I mean, what are the Phillies going to say about Nola? Oh, you haven't won a Cy Young? I mean,
yeah, but you never know. Who was it who was saying there was character assassination, and they were saying
Trevor
that was
that
also
him too?
yeah.
Yeah, so for him, that left a very sour taste in his mouth. He's he never wanted to play for them again.
Well, Trevor Bauer is a hothead in general. I mean,
yeah,
he literally bullied a 12-year-old girl on Twitter. So
yeah, so you do have some things you could say about that.
Yeah, exactly.
So. Well, all right, let's move on from that. We have one more thing in this to talk about. What do you think if the Nats do re-sign Bryce? What do you think that contract is going to look like, and what impact do you think that might have on Rendon?
So a lot of people don't understand this. If the Nats re-sign Bryce, it has zero impact on Anthony Rendon. Those two are completely mutually exclusive, and they have the money to do both. And any contract Bryce is going to be signed, it's going to be heavily deferred, and he's going to have multiple opt-outs anyways. And Rendon isn't going to get the money he asked for. He wanted 160 or 70. No shot he gets close to that. And people don't really understand that. And so I think Bryce will get 10 years, 310 with opt-outs, have 3-5 and probably a 7th year. And so the amount of people don't understand that billionaires and the Nats essentially can do both really bothers me.
Yeah, and it also bothers me. I mean, it doesn't matter now because the Nats have already signed Corbin, Dozier, etc.
Yeah.
But it bothers me the people who say, oh, if we had signed Bryce, we wouldn't have made any other moves. Rizzo has said all offseason that one move doesn't impact the other.
Yeah.
Corbin doesn't mean they were out of the Bryce argument and vice versa. So I really believe that signing Bryce doesn't mean the end for Rendon. They are fully aware of how important Rendon is to the team and what it's going to take to re-sign him. So just because we get Bryce back doesn't mean Rendon's gone.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that Rendon deserves a big contract. I hope they sign him to something that's going to keep him here for his career. I think he's, he's so quiet and he doesn't get nearly the recognition that he deserves. But
he was number 21 on the MLB.
Yeah, but that was
top
surprising
100.
to me because normally people overlook him. I mean, the guy's never been an all-star for God's sake. He's one of the best third basemen in baseball and has been for years.
Yeah, I mean, the All-Star is a popularity vote, so the fact that,
he's not on social media and he's
exactly. He's not that flashy guy. He's not made for the limelight. He just wants to do his work, and we love that. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I agree. He doesn't get the recognition he deserves, but I don't think he's definitely not going to get 7 for 160
no.
like he's reported
No, but I
to
hope
have
they can
wanted.
figure out a way. I don't want him to hit free agency. I want them to try to figure regardless of what happens with Bryce.
Do
I
you
want
know
them to
who
figure
his
it out.
agent is?
I do know who his agent is. I do know who his agent is. They can't get off the phone with Scott Boras.
Yeah, I will throw out there that come next season he will be 30. So
Yeah.
that's that dangerous number that you play with a long-term deal. So
As soon
I
as you
mean,
hit 30, teams have
If they can get a reasonable AAV for him, I would be perfectly happy. He's got some injury history, but the guy's a workhorse. I'd be happy.
I mean, I agree, but anything can happen when you hit 30. You literally don't know. So the Nats might just switch gears and go cheap and not decide to give him anything close to a fair offer. I mean, there is a possibility that could happen.
Yeah, I suppose there is. So time will tell on that one.
Yeah.
All right, before we go on to our next topic, I just want to stop for a minute and tell all of you guys who are listening here about the library of podcasts from the DMV Sports Network. There are 9 active shows right now. Team shows for the Redskins, Caps, Nats, Wizards, and Ravens. Also Fantasy Fever, dealing with fantasy football. And a pair of shows that cover multiple topics. The It's About Time DC show and the Dom and Thunder show. And finally, a debate show called DMV Dispute, which is available via live stream on Twitter. All these shows are available wherever you get your podcasts, so please check them out when you're done listening to us. And if you like our show or any others, please leave a review and subscribe on whatever platform you use. Okay, let's move on. Talk about that. We just briefly brought up the MLB Top 100. We have some few players on there, Rendon, Turner, and Soto. So let's go back into Rendon a little bit since we were just talking about him. How good really is Rendon? He came in at number 21 on that list. Do you guys think that's a fair number for him?
Yeah, I was surprised that he was that high. Not that he doesn't deserve it. It was just like, wow, is he really the 21st best player in the MLB? And like I thought about it, and just from a third base perspective, I mean, you have your top tier guys like Arenado, Bregman, Jose Ramirez, and I don't think he's that good, but he's probably the top of that next tier. So if you're looking towards the future, like we said, he's going to be 30 next year, but he still has valuable years left. So let's say Bryce doesn't resign, he's the new guy that the Nats rally around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I only put too much stock into the top 100 because the entire
That's
team
true.
is made for TV. Like if you watch that, like whenever they did the rankings, all the first basemen were together. All the shortstops were together. The pitchers were together. And they were kind of just going with it and putting the guys together who everyone's talking about. But I think he's pretty accurately ranked. I was surprised. I feel like Nats fans overrate him a little bit, but I think nationally he's right. That's right where he probably should go. I mean, he's not going to like change the game, but he's just going to consistently perform day in and day out. And I think 21 was pretty solid for him.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm just looking at his numbers from last year. I mean, he had a 4.2 WAR and a 308 batting average. I mean, those are great numbers. And career-wise, he's had a few little ups and downs with injuries, and he missed some significant time. But overall, he's just solid. You know what you're going to get from him. He's going to be a guy you can count on to give you solid at bats and a good batting average and a great glove at third base.
See, the glove thing's pretty funny though, because I mean,
it is pretty funny.
I don't really like defensive metrics, but last year he had the third worst DRS amongst third basemen in the NL, and so I mean, obviously, defensive runs saved is like one of those saber metrics a lot of people don't like.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Like everyone kind of overhypes his defense a little bit, but he's still a good defender overall.
I think he's a good defender. I mean, like I said, he doesn't. It's not always flashy, but I feel like the times when you see him commit an error are very few and far between. You know, you generally know that if there's a play that needs to be made, he's going to make it. And I don't need flash and flare at third base. I just want a guy that's not going to screw it up.
Fair enough.
Yeah. He definitely gives you that. So let's go on to Soto, who came in at 36.
I was pretty surprised Soto was that high. But
yeah, me too.
Me too.
Especially when Acuna was right there. Dude was 19, didn't play the entire season, had a really good year. Terrible defender.
Really. I mean, he's learning the position, and so you give him some slack. But yeah, come on.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I thought he would kind of be closer to like 50 or so, or kind of close to where Trey was, but Trey's also kind of underrated. But future should be very bright with Soto.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch him this year and see what he does with
Yeah.
a full season.
Yeah, so I was very surprised he was this high. Granted, they said the top 100 right now, so if you just basically go off of last season, it's probably right as far as like being number 36. I have an unpopular opinion that I think he has a pretty rough sophomore slump. I don't want that to happen by any means.
I want you to be wrong.
Yeah, it's hard to expect a now 20-year-old to repeat that. Granted, it was even harder to expect a 19-year-old to do what he did last year, but I think there's going to be some regression, and I think he will figure it out, but I don't see him.
I expect some regression, but I don't think. I mean, even a regression.
I'm not talking
off his numbers. Is still going to be
extraordinary. Right. I'm not saying he's going to get sent down to AAA or anything, but I just want to pump the brakes a little bit.
You
That's
think
all.
You're going to knock our socks off next year like you did last year?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be like an MVP caliber like player. I just want to pump the brakes.
Regression's natural in the player's second year in every sport. I mean, look at Trey. Like, and when he first came up, he had like 350 and like had a slugging like well over 500, and that's not who he is. And then the next year, that came way back down to normal. And I think we're going to see that with Soto also, because we've now had an entire season for the league to look over tape and realize how to pitch him, realize his weaknesses, and the league's going to counter adjust to what Soto did last year. So we're going to see more of a average what he is actually going to be this season.
I think it's also going to depend on where they put him in the lineup and what kind of pitches he's going to see. If they can pitch around him, they will.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you pitch around him, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I hope he does well and continues to build on what he's already done, but I'm just cautiously optimistic on him.
Fair enough. Okay, that brings us to Trey Turner, who came in at 80.
I was a little surprised at that. I mean, I like Trey. I think Trey's a really good player. I mean, he led shortstops in WAR on Baseball Reference and Fangraphs. I'm not a big fan of WAR, but I mean, he led it on two different websites, and he kind of had a down year offensively, but 84th was pretty shocking.
Yeah, and 271 isn't a great batting average, but for a down year, that's not too shabby.
Yeah, and I mean, a shortstop is a premium position too. You don't. I mean, granted, we're like in this golden age of shortstops where we have a ton of just amazing shortstops on several different teams, but historically, you struggled to find a consistently good shortstop that can have a career there. So, yeah, I was surprised that he was this low, but I think, like Ryan said, he's underrated. I don't think he's in the same breath as those top tier or maybe even that second tier of shortstops. But he definitely deserves to be 84 and probably even higher. And I think he has a really good year this year. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him this year. He had 43 stolen bases last year, which is just absurd.
Yeah, I don't think that's his ceiling. Well, it's not a ceiling by any means, but I think it's going to be higher this year. I think they're just going to let him
loose. I mean, if he gets on first, he's already on third. So I mean,
basically
that kind of being in the pitcher's heads is so valuable because they can't focus on the at bat.
Yeah.
And he had a 344 on base percentage. So while his average wasn't that high, I mean, he was on base a lot.
Yep. He's maturing.
Scored over 100 runs.
270 was about 27 points higher than the league average. But I'm just hoping we can finally get that breakout season to his full potential, because I feel like all his numbers aren't to what he's fully capable of.
Yeah,
he hasn't put it all together.
Quite reached the ceiling.
Yeah, he's shown he can hit for power. He's shown that he can get on, and he's a threat on the bases. I just want to see that consistently over a season, because like last year he was really hot, and then he had a streak where he went like 1 for 30, and no one was talking about that. So I just want to see him.
What I hated was that it was a hit by pitch, right? That he got hurt on. He was on fire and just doing so well. Was that last year or the year before? And then
that was the year before.
Yeah,
he got hit on the hand, right?
Yeah,
it always feels like that. Like something, he gets hot and things are going well, and then something happens, and it doesn't quite get it. It doesn't quite. You don't get quite to see his potential. So I'm hoping this is the year.
He definitely has those stretches too, and I think now that Eaton's healthy, and hypothetically you have Eaton and then Turner hitting second, that's just going to benefit Turner so much, and we're really going to see that breakout we've been waiting for.
Yes, I hope so. Okay, let's take some Twitter questions. Okay, let's start out. We had 2 from @Tudweiser on Twitter. First one is thoughts on Kyler playing football and how Tebow went back to baseball.
So I have always been a Tim Tebow supporter. I just love the guy. That doesn't speak to his talents on the football field or the baseball diamond, but I've always been a supporter. And then obviously Kyler Murray has recently decided to pursue football as opposed to baseball. I think a lot of that is due to just his ability to make more playing football, like in the short term. Because I think the top 34 picks in the NFL draft will make more guaranteed money than he was guaranteed at the 7th or 9th spot, wherever the A's took him. So I think that's more of a monetary decision than him like thinking about his career or anything. This is a national debate. You've seen Deion Sanders chime in on it, and he said he would have just played baseball if he could go back and do it again, which I think is probably the right choice, just as far as career length and obviously all the CTE issues.
Working brain at 50.
Yeah, that'd be nice to have. But
the ability to walk and remember your kids when you're 50.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I also can't blame him. I mean, he wants that payday. He wants to cash in now while he's still able. I mean, and honestly, there's no guarantee that he makes it with the A's. Granted, I think that's a perfect situation for him to break through, considering of their track record of bringing guys up. But I mean, I can't blame him because football, it's that instant payout, and he wants that money. So it sucks for the sport of baseball, but I mean, that's just the way the CBA is. And
yeah, and I think it's a lot about how you come up from the baseball. It's a process. Just because you got drafted high doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be in the big leagues anytime soon or ever. Where in football, if you're a high draft pick quarterback, you're going to be on the field that first year, and you've got the opportunity to get famous and rich and all of those things immediately. Where it takes a lot of patience to come up through the minor leagues in baseball. Even the guys who come up fast, it still takes a hell of a lot longer than it does in football.
Yeah, and with Tebow, it's a little bit different because it was just so unorthodox. Like, granted, Kyler is pretty unorthodox too, but you have kind of guys to model him after, like Russell Wilson and Baker Mayfield. But Tebow was just so unorthodox. It wasn't that he couldn't play football. It was just no one really gave him a shot, and he didn't really have a home.
Fit the mold.
Well, according to Bill Belichick, he had no future in football and needed to pick up something else. So he listened to him.
That's true.
That's true. Although I don't get the hate for Tim Tebow. I really don't understand why everybody hates the guy. Like, sure, you work out in football, but he seems like a good dude, and I don't know why. I seriously don't get why everybody hates him.
I love the guy. I think it's almost become popular to hate on him. But I mean, but that being said, I don't expect too much from him on the baseball diamond. I think the Mets have, to their credit, tried to skip their rebuild that they probably need to still have anyways. So I don't think there's that.
Do you think we'll ever see him in a Mets uniform in the regular season?
And I was going to say spring training.
Yeah.
Ticket sales ever go down.
Yeah, I thought last year they might have, just because they were so bad.
I was
but
thinking
this year
call-ups they might bring them up, but
yeah, who knows? I mean, if they're out of it come August, they might just think it's worth their while to sell some tickets and bring them up.
Sell out the tickets for sure.
Yeah, but I don't think he's ever gonna make it to the majors as like a lasting player, unfortunately.
All right, so what jersey? This is also from Tudweiser here. What jersey is the safest to buy if Bryce doesn't resign?
It's all about longevity.
You
just gotta think. Soto's going to be here for a while. Trey's going to be here for a while. Corbin's going to be here a while.
Scherzer's the obvious
even Robles. Yeah, I mean, he's if you want to be, he's going to be the basic like Bryce jersey, which I have like 5 of, so I can't really say anything. If you want to, you want to get someone who's going to be here a while, so you're not constantly spending $200, but get the hipster pick. Go Robles.
Yeah. I don't know.
You're going to have it.
The question is the safest. I don't think that's the safest.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, you just follow the money, which would lead you to our starting pitchers. So Scherzer, Strasburg, and now Corbin.
All of those guys are going to be here for a good long time. Although Strasburg
Yeah.
has an opt-out after this season, although I can't.
Yeah,
imagine
he. I don't know who asked him about it, but he just talked about it recently, and I mean, all signs indicate that he's gonna opt in into. I don't know if he has another opt out after this one, but he's gonna opt into his deal or the remainder of his deal, however it works out.
Unfortunately.
Oh,
shut
come on.
your face!
Wow, shots
I hate
fired.
you. I hate you. But yeah, you just follow the money if you're buying a jersey. So
I've got
one of the starting
Rendon,
pitchers.
and I've had it for years, so I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to wear it.
Yeah,
for a long time.
The other option is just to get a safe player who, like, even if they weren't on the team anymore, like, you could still wear their jersey proudly, and that would be like a Zim or a Rendon.
I don't
someone
think
like
Zim
that.
will be here too much longer, but you'll never. 30 years from now, you could wear a Ryan Zimmerman jersey to a Nats game, and nobody would look at you askance.
Yeah, I don't know how this. I think Ryan and I are on the same page with this. I don't know how for the rest of Twitter and our listeners it would go, but I hope Zim isn't around next year. I think he's just
retweet.
It's the same story over and over. Zim's healthy this year.
It's so hard to say that because
they're like,
oh
yeah. I mean, but
and
it's like, Zim's healthy this year.
Oh.
No, he's not. He's never healthy. The dude's never been healthy, like, in his life. I mean, you could tell me that, and I
very
believe
well
you.
Be right, but I'm not willing to admit it yet. So
I just think it'd be a mistake to commit a lot of money to him again. I think he's holding us back.
Yeah, I don't think if they give him another contract, I think it needs to be a very reasonable one and say, look, we love you, we want you here for your whole career, but we can't pay you like a guy that you're only ever able to be for a month or so out of every season.
Exactly. And plus in his contract he has that he moves into the front office whenever he retires. So it's not like he's going to be gone or on a different team. He will be a part of the organization.
Oh, good. That's good to hear because I do love Ryan Zimmerman, but it's hard to think about paying him again.
Yeah.
All right. The next one is from @Dom and Thunder, our buddy Dom from the DMV Sports Network. He has a bang, marry, kill. Russell, Nightingale, and Bowden. We
just had a hot stove. Mike Moustakas is off the board. He's returned to the Brewers. Sorry, just had to break that news. You heard it here first.
Oh, wow. Breaking news.
Did they say what the deal was?
Just a 1-year contract.
Okay. Did they give the value?
Not yet. It's pending physical. Ken Rosenthal just dropped the bomb 29 seconds ago, and you're hearing it now live.
All right. Except you're not, because you're not going to hear this till tomorrow, but that's cool.
Well, thanks for ruining it. No, if I had to guess, it would be similar to like what he got last year, or similar to like a qualifying offer. I think that's what the Brewers are trying to do.
They're going to be an interesting team to watch this
year. Yeah, I think it's a great move for them. I mean, Moose definitely still has value. So, I mean, he was another one who really deserved a job. And, I mean, 1-year deal. I mean, we know he'll deserves
free agency again this time next year. Yeah.
Right. We know he deserves a longer deal. He deserved one last year, and he deserves money. But, I mean, this is just the way the market is.
All right. So what do we got? Russell, Nightingale, and Bowden.
Ryan, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, we're just picking between 3 terrible people here. Kind of just like closing your eyes to your like 30 shots drink at the bar and just like screw it, let's see what happens. Just obviously the obvious, kill Bob Nightingale. Dude's the worst.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Just wrong always about everything.
Agreed. That's the obvious one. I mean, you kill Bob Nightingale. I think you have to marry Russell just because I think he is trying to just get it right. He's not trying to mislead us.
I think so too, but when it comes to Redskins stuff, I feel like he's got a much more inside track than on the baseball stuff. I don't know who his source is with the Nats, but I feel like I trust his I trust his Redskins insider stuff a lot more than the Nats coverage.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is trying to get it right. It's just, I mean, you could throw a dart at a dartboard and you could just be as close to being right as anyone else.
And that leaves Bowden.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take a cheap shot, and I am going to kill 2 people here.
Damn it! I was just gonna say that.
That is not how the game is played, gentlemen.
That's how I'm playing this game.
We're breaking the rules. We're just breaking the rules.
The dude every month says the same thing, but just inserts a new team. He was like, I would be shocked if Bryce doesn't end up back with the Nats. They're the favorite. And then
right. I'd be shocked if it's not the Dodgers. I'd be shocked if it's not the Phillies.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if it's not. Yeah.
Oh, they're on the 20-yard line.
I know. Rounding third, there's always all the analogies.
Yeah.
Okay, one more here. The Nats Fanatic says, what players will be all-stars for the Nats this season?
This is a good question. And I think, assuming Machado and Bryce and everyone else signs, we can actually do our season predictions and kind of get a good picture of how the season might play out. But as far as who we have now, Strauss, you have to assume he's healthy, but assuming he's healthy, I think the top 3 pitchers are all stars. I just don't. I don't see how they're not
selected, but I think they might all have seasons worthy.
I'm going bold. I think they all do. I do not think Rendon does. He probably will deserve it, but I don't think he will. If Bryce resigns, Bryce will be an all-star. And that maybe Doolittle, but I think it's going to be a pitcher-heavy all-star selection.
All right, I would add Turner to that list. I think if he's got a healthy season, we see the breakout season we're all hoping to get from him. He's gonna be tearing it up on the bases, and that's fun stuff. That's things that fans like to see. So like you said, it's popularity contest. I think we'll see Turner in there maybe. Bryce, if he resigns, or whether he does or not, I think he's going to feel like he has a lot to prove this year after the long free agency. So I think he's going to be an all-star wherever he is. And Scherzer, and I'll go Corbin and maybe Doolittle.
Yeah. It is a popularity contest, and as much as I am willing to throw cheap shots out at most Nats fans, this one is just being very serious that they just don't do a good job at backing up their guys. So when it comes to that
tiny fan base, if you look at those maps of who roots for which teams, it's a tiny fan base around.
They still don't, regardless, they still don't do a good job. Don't do a good job of backing up their guys. So that's why you don't see Rendon ever win that final vote. And I think Rendon is probably going to be in the final vote again this year, and he probably will come in 4th or 5th again this year, even though he should just be a flat all-star without any final vote.
Yeah, it should. And although the good news is I don't think he cares.
No. That doesn't mean anything to him, thankfully, but
all right. So where's our last one here? At pork_chop47 says, if Bryce doesn't re-sign, who is the most important player on the Nats?
So I think the popular answer is Anthony Rendon. And I think that's a good answer, but just from age, I don't know. Anything could happen. Age 30 is just anything could happen in baseball and most sports. I think the answer is probably Robles or Soto. Because you just think to the future. Because if they don't pan out, then we're talking about, do the Nats become sellers and sell off their pieces and try to rebuild? So I think it's really on them if Bryce doesn't resign to keep the ship afloat and keep the faith that we're still a competitor and a World Series caliber team.
I think that if Bryce doesn't resign, that they're going to have to ride their pitching a lot more than ever. I think the lineup would be pretty average. So I'm going to say Strauss. I think they're going to need a finally full healthy season from him, because if he's healthy and he's on, then the rotation is going to be dominant, and that will carry them and make up for any little weaknesses they may have. So I'm going to go Strauss being the most important guy.
Strauss was almost my pick, but I'm going to go Soto, because if Bryce is not here, I feel like we've talked before about how you need a guy. I think we talked on Twitter. You need a guy everybody's afraid of in the lineup. And if Soto can be what he was last year, then he can replace that big bat in the lineup. He can be a guy that other people have to account for when they're setting up who's going to pitch this game and how are we going to play this and what are we going to do. And you need that in your lineup. Having a bunch of, mediocre to good players is fine, but you've got to have at least one scary player. And I think if Bryce isn't here to be that guy, we need somebody else to be that guy. And I think Soto is the one who will have to fill that role.
Yeah. When it comes down to it, we really need everyone to step up if Bryce isn't here. So everyone's going to have an increased role when you go on without Bryce.
And let's hope that's not the case. And this time next week, we'll all be celebrating Bryce Harper being a national again.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So that's going to do it for us. I hope you guys all enjoyed the show. If you did, please subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. We're really excited about this new podcast and would really love to get out, reach more people. You can find me again. I'm Amanda White on Twitter, awhite7877. And you guys give your handles again there.
Yeah, you can give us a follow at DC Natchak. We may follow you back, depends on your account. But yeah,
so you have that to look forward to, maybe.
Yeah, and while you're at it, go follow at Half Street High Heat. That's where you'll get a lot of the podcast related news and notes and polls and whatnot. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about the show. And yeah.
All right. And don't forget also to check out dmvsportsnetwork.com. You can follow them on Instagram and Twitter at DMV_SN. They're always looking for more writers. So if you're interested in doing that, you can reach out to them via Twitter, direct message, or the website, or you can shoot them an email at dmvsportsnetwork@outlook.com. Thanks for listening. We will talk again next week, and go Nats.
See you guys
later.